Hi, my name is Brandon and I'm an alcoholic and addict in recovery. Today I want to talk a little bit about experiencing emotions, letting them happen, letting them go, and the way that that relates both to meditation and relationships. Taken a lot of this from the book Going to Pieces Without Falling Apart by Mark Epstein, and I'm going to read a couple of paragraphs and then talk about how this relates to addiction and the parts that really jumped out at me. So the first thing he says is, in meditation, as in relationships, we can have experiences of profound harmony or union. The impulse in beginning meditation is to try to stop all thoughts and disturbing emotions, just as the impulse when falling in love is to try to preserve the harmony of the new couple. But stopping thoughts is about as effective as trying to have a relationship without fighting. The frustration that we feel with our lovers is mirrored by the frustration that many meditators feel within their own minds. In both cases, the most difficult thoughts and feelings are those involving the mix of desire and aggression. Then he goes on to say, with enough practice in meditation, we learn how to let disturbances come and go, turning them from obstacles into more grist for the mill. So taking these disturbances, taking the things that we're at first trying to get rid of, and actually using them to create a more powerful meditation and to learn more about how to effectively meditate. This is the key to mandala. When we learn to let emotions like anger rise and fall on their own instead of struggling to get rid of them, we can deepen our practice and enhance our capacities for relationship and passionate engagement. So in other words, instead of, I think that people fall into, if we have to oversimplify things, people fall into two general categories. And the one is that in relationships, you seek to avoid confrontation, or in relationships, you have unhealthy confrontation. And, there's the people who are in the third category where you embrace healthy confrontation, I think are a rare bunch. And those of us in the other two categories have a lot to learn from them. I have always been in the category of avoiding confrontation. And for a while, I thought that was a good thing. I thought my ability to have a long-term relationship with my wife without much fighting was a sign of our maturity as a couple. But I've realized now that I was doing a lot of avoiding confrontation because I couldn't tolerate the feelings that came with that, the aggression mixed with desire, as he says here. And so I wanted to try to push those emotions away, get rid of them, get rid of any emotions related to anger, and just push those down, get rid of those. And as I started to do that, what inevitably happened, and this was, of course, very tied in with my addictive behavior, was that resentment started to form over time. And I am still, almost 2 years into recovery, untangling the knots of those resentments and working with my wife to do so, and learning how to have a relationship where confrontation is something that happens, but it happens in a healthy way. So, reading a little further, he says, if we are unwilling to make room for our most unruly feelings, we must shut ourselves down instead. And that really jumped out at me. And this is what I feel like I was very proficient in my addiction. I had trouble making room for unruly feelings in my life. And instead of learning how to do that, instead of learning how to expand my experience, my awareness in life, so that I can make room for the unruly, for the really unpleasant feelings, being overwhelmed, being stressed out, and feeling alone, all of that, Instead of doing that, I did what he says here, and I shut myself down. And I found a very effective way to do that with drugs and alcohol. I think it's the same for a lot of people. We get to a point where we find it so difficult to tolerate these unruly emotions that we turn to alcohol and drugs to shut ourselves down so that we don't have to feel them. And it's funny, I was thinking about this last night because I realized that, when I'm feeling anger, when I'm feeling sadness, when I'm feeling anything that I don't feel like is pleasant these days, I don't have anywhere to turn in terms of a quick fix, whereas used to, I could very easily go grab a bottle, go load a bowl, and get some immediate relief from those emotions. And I realized that that's actually a good thing because it allows the emotion to go through its course, to go through its natural course. And usually in that course, I find as long as I'm experiencing the emotion, as long as I'm drawing on the tools I learned in recovery in order to cope with it, then if I allow it to run its course, all of a sudden I find a lesson somewhere in there. And it's usually something that I can or should have or should be doing differently. It's often an apology that I need to make, or maybe it's something that I made a mistake on that I didn't even realize and that I can do different the next time. And that's usually when the emotion starts to dissipate, is when I learn that lesson from it. But I never learned those lessons before because I was always just trying to shut myself down so I didn't have to feel the emotions. So I liked this passage in terms of the way that it brought up both the negative emotions and feelings that sometimes come up during a relationship, as well as the way that we tend to shut ourselves down if we're not willing to experience those. I think both are very important in recovery, and I am very grateful that I've learned that if I allow myself to feel these things, and if I look for what these emotions are trying to teach me, then both my relationship with myself and the world around me, as well as my relationship with the people who are important in my life, flourish because of that and are all the better because of it. That's it for today. Hope you have a good one, and I'll be back here tomorrow with more.